Hello, this is Greg Schultz with Sonar Controls. With our weekly product review, this week we will be reviewing the Yaskawa MotoMini 6-axis robot. As you can see, it's a small system with the built-in base controller as well as external controllers. Yaskawa, if you're not familiar with them, are actually a very large company. They're actually the world's largest manufacturer of control drives, motors, and motion control systems. Founded in 1915 as Yaskawa Electric, their U.S. headquarters is in Waukegan, Illinois. They manufacture all over the world, and historically, they're a very strong and innovative company. Very, very strong company. Now, let's take a review here. There's a misconception that we at Synarch hate Yaskawa. This is not true. They have excellent motor system and drives. Very, very good. But we're also open and we're honest about every product, even our own products that we deal with in our systems we install. So just to be quite frank with you, we're going to be honest about everything with it. In our opinion, Yaskawa motors and drives are excellent. The Yaskawa PLCs are not. It's an older platform with a difficult learning curve and a very strict limitations of what it can do. It was actually designed to integrate into their motion systems, which is fine, but you can actually integrate any other controller into the Yaskawa motion system, which is what most people do. In fact, we went to the Yaskawa America website, and if you look on the screen, you will see that nowhere in the website that they even list or reference their PLCs. It's not a large market for them. They really don't push it. And the actual market for it is pretty small. It's pretty modular companies that work with them. And they also, companies that use them for proprietary information. They use sometimes in the boxing industry and sometimes in the high-speed automation. But the PLCs are not the greatest. The motors, robotics, and drives are very, very good. Now, just like any other typical 6-axis robot, you have three components that come with it. You actually have the robot, the controller, and the pendant. Now, a few things here to discuss is, one, I really like the pendant. As you can see from the screen, it's a graphical user interface. The really interesting thing about it is you can actually use the pendant as the HMI in the controller. When you program the robot for a function, you can actually have independent or specialized images, your own bitmaps, JPEGs, that sort of thing on there, and you can change products. And you can actually run it through the pendant itself as a fully functional system, as opposed to integrating HMI to it. Now, if you want, you can integrate an HMI to it, and that's fine too. The controller is interesting in that they use the same controller for most of the Moto Man series. So you can use the same controller for the Moto Mini and the larger Moto Man systems. And even their cooperative robots use the same controller. They just add the cooperative card to the machine. It has Ethernet capabilities, has multiple capabilities for protocols, and it's a pretty fully functional controller, and it's pretty nice in the functionality. I like that much of it. The applications for this robotic system are typical applications, assemblies, sorting, that sort of thing. You can integrate vision into it. And they also use it for STEM education because it's not that expensive of a robot, and small institutions can use it to train people on how to use robots, program robots, and that sort of thing. So when they go into workforce, they have some experience. It's a pretty nice little system they have. Now, here's the good. Motors and the motion of the system are extremely reliable. Just like I said before, MotoMan builds very good motion control systems. They have an extensive support network. Yaskawa is worldwide. They have multiple sales outlets, multiple support systems. It's a very easy system to maintain, and if you need help, you can get it anytime you want. It's easily maintainable. If you look at the image of the robot, you'll see that the actual outer housing of the robot is actually plastic, which means you can pop the plastic off, do whatever service you need to, and pop it back on, as opposed to some robots which are actually die cast, sand cast, or whatever, or machined from aluminum, and they are difficult to work with. This robot is easy. Now, a few comments I've heard, actually one in particular, about having the plastic housing is that why would we want plastic housings when we crash the robot? It could break. The better question is why are you crashing the robot? Some of the software that you can get for the Yaskawa allows you to actually program the motion in 3 dimensions in the actual environment you're working in. So you can set up no crash zones, which is typical for most robotics, except having a 3D integration is pretty unique and pretty useful. So if you're afraid of breaking it because you crash it, the solution is to not crash it. Now it's lightweight, it weighs 7 kilograms, which of course you can hold in the palm of your hand, and that's pretty good. It has a configurable pendant, like I said, you can configure for production operation, and it's really, really handy. It also has the typical palm guard on it, so if you release it, the system will stop for safety. Here's a quick video showing the actual multiple Yaskawa mini motos running, MotoMinis rather, and you can see the actual pendant running, and it's a promotional video, but I think it gives you a pretty good idea of how it works. Okay, now that we go through the video, it shows you some of the motion it can do, the repeatability of the system. And then it also shows you the pendant, how you can configure it, and that sort of thing. You can also integrate it to data collection, HMI, and MIT, and MCI systems, which is really useful. Now here's some considerations, aka the bad. The controller size is considerably, in my opinion, too large. I understand that they want to have the use of one controller for multiple robots. But when you compare it to other systems like the II Scaras and that sort of thing, the size of the actual controller is extensive. Now, in the images, it looked like the controller was actually smaller than a robot. In fact, it is considerably larger than a robot. Here, the dimensions are for it. It's pretty large, as you can see. It's designed to be a rack mount, which is fine. But it's too big for the size of the actual robot, in my opinion. This is my personal opinion. If you have a robot that's only has a 300 millimeter reach, but your controller is actually 425 millimeters, it seems to be a bit excessive. Now, there's also, and this is just a personal peeve of mine, marketing departments do what they do, and I understand it. Everybody in manufacturing understands it as well, but they have an inaccurate claim, and the inaccurate claim is that the MotoMini is the smallest and lightest six-axis robot in the industry. This is actually not true. They are not the smallest, and they are not the lightest six-axis robot in the industry. This is the Mecha 500, manufactured by Mecha. It is considerably smaller and considerably lighter than the Yaskawa robotic system, the Mini Moto. The problem I have is lead time. This is not a Yaskawa alone issue. This is the issue I have with all robotic suppliers. and that they have extensive lead times. It's just an industry problem, in my opinion, where they cannot assemble these things, test them, and get them shipped out sooner. 10-week lead times are a problem, and some of them are going up to 14-week lead times, and that's a real issue. I don't understand that business model, to be quite honest with you, because if you can ship a unit in 2 weeks, your revenues go up and you're more profitable. The cash flow is fine, but these companies tend to have really long lead times, and I'm just not a fan of it. I'm not a fan. So, since we know that the Yaskawa MotoMini is not the smallest and lightest, I thought, well, let's compare it to the smallest and lightest and see how they come out together as far as functionality and which would be the better route to go. Repeatability. The Mecha 500 has a repeatability of 0.2 of a thousandth, where the Moto Mini has repeatability of 0.8 of a thousandth. So the Mecha 500 is actually 4 times more accurate than the Yaskawa Moto Mini. That one goes to the Mecha 500. Payload. They both are limited to 0.5 kilogram payload, which is not much when you consider that if you put end of arm tooling on it, the part you're picking up must be very lightweight, which in the video you saw was little plastic pieces for cars. That's understandable. You can't expect a small robot to pick up heavy weights. It's just not viable. So both of those are tied. The interface. The Moto Mini has a pendant interface, which I already told you was very clean and very easy to program with. But the Mecha 500 requires the integrated development, and that means it really doesn't have a standalone controller. You have to write the program to make the robot do whatever you want it to do, whether it's in C, Python, Visual Basic, Ruby, whatever programming language you want to use, or you can control it through a PLC, but what you're really doing is basically just sending it ASCII strings and telling it where to go. That's perfectly fine, but I think that's a limitation in that if you want to have a robot that can be easily programmed by a technician or maintained by a technician, you have to have a pendant in order to do that. You can't expect an average technician to understand the programming language or even have access to that programming language to change or adjust coding for a robot. So I give that one to the Moto Mini. Pricing. The Mecha 500 is approximately $16,000, where the Moto Mini is approximately $20,000. Well, yeah, the Mecha 500 is cheaper, so the Mecha gets that one. Support. Mecha 500 is made by a small company called Mechademics. They're in Canada. They're a fairly small company. They produce moderate volumes. With the Moto Mini comes from Yaskawa, and they have an extensive support system. If you have issues with a Yaskawa product, you can typically get support for 24/7. With the Mecha 500, you don't. I'll give that one to the Moto Mini. Range. The Mecha 500's literature says it has a reach of about 300 millimeters, when in fact it's really only 260 millimeters. I'm not a big fan of vague marketing, as already mentioned before. The Moto Mini has a reach of 350 millimeters, so the Moto Mini gets that one. Maintainability. The Mecha 500 is very difficult to maintain. As I mentioned before, the programming is done independently by your team. If your team has the time to do it, that's great. But most companies, manufacturers do not. If you're producing a proprietary equipment, yeah, the Mecha 500 may be something you can have, so you can have back-end sales and maintaining the equipment. But the vast majority of people who want a robot system want something that's simple to maintain and simple to keep operational. And then they want to be able to move it to another machine and reprogram quickly and keep production going. So that one goes to the Moto Mini. So the Mecha wins on repeatability. On payload, they're tied. On the interface, Moto Mini wins. On pricing, on support, the Moto Mini. Range, the Moto Mini. Maintainability is the Moto Mini. But the pricing goes to the Mecha 500. The Mecha 500 is cheaper and more repeatable. However, something to consider, which is not listed here, is that the speeds of the Moto Mini versus the Mecha is drastically different. The Moto Mini is about 4 times faster in motion than the Mecha 500. The Mecha is very precise and inexpensive, where the Yaskawa has 0.8 of a thousandth precision, which honestly is good enough for 99% of the applications in the world, and is considerably faster. Now let's do another comparison here on weight. The Mecha weighs 4.5 kilograms. The Moto Mini weighs 7 kilograms. Like I said, the Moto Mini is not the smallest and the lightest weight 6-axis robot. The Mecha 500 is, but the fact of the matter is that if you're going to have an issue with 3.5 kilograms variance in weight, you've got a very special application, and maybe the Mecha 500 is the way you want to go. But for the vast majority of applications, 7 kilograms versus 4.5 kilograms isn't that big of a deal. Yeah, the Mecha is actually lighter, but 3.5 kilograms is not much, folks. So which system would I select? It's pretty straightforward for me. In the vast majority of applications, you want to have a system you can bolt to a machine base you can quickly program and that you can maintain easily. That means Yaskawa is the better product for that application. If you have proprietary technology that you want to keep secret, your own code, your own systems like that, or specialized systems, yeah, the Mecha may be what you need to have. But for everything else out there, I would choose the Yaskawa MotoMini. It's more versatile, easier to maintain, easier to program, just a simpler integration, and the turnaround time would be much faster. So that's the system I would go with. It's, again, not the smallest or the lightest, but considering the pricing of a difference of only $4,000, it's worth the $20,000 that you pay for it. It's actually a really nice system. Thank you for watching, and I hope you get to view the next video next week.